Hello everyone, it's me, Pastor Scott Boggs of the Potter's Church, again here, coming at you from my home office this Sunday morning. And if you got a chance and you got the next 20 minutes or so, or bookmark this for a more convenient time, if you want to sit down, maybe grab a cup of coffee, or whatever your beverage of choice is. We're going to talk today, continued topical teaching on bringing healthier home and healthier communication between you and your spouse. Last week I'd put out a message called How a Ping Pong Ball Can Save Your Marriage, and hopefully that there's some things in there that can help a little bit if you're in a situation, an unhealthy environment where you and your spouse are just not connecting and communicating correctly. So I encourage you to watch that. And last week I'd mentioned that there's just so much on this topic of being able just pastoral counsel and advice and imploring to create healthier homes and better relationships between husbands and wives. There's just so much on that topic and so many books to have been read and so many things to implement to keep cultivating and maintaining a healthy home. It was just too much for 20 minutes last week, so I'd mentioned that this week we might go a little bit further and create some content that would hopefully help your homes and your marriages, if you need any help in your home or your marriage, even furthermore. One of the things that I wanted to bring up and talk about was this Dr. Gary Chapman's 5 love languages. It's called the 5 love languages. And if you haven't heard of this, several years ago, my wife and I, we're coming on about, let's see, in about a couple months here, we're going to be been married 15 years, and I have 3 children, Joshua 14, Natalie 12, and Caleb 10. And years ago, I'm going to say around maybe our 6-7 year mark, we were beginning to have some life issues and some conflicts and just some missing each other in areas of our life. And what it really was just not really understanding each other, and we came across this concept by Dr. Gary Chapman, and I encourage you, if you haven't heard of this already, to go on Amazon and put in the 5 love languages and get his book. These things really helped my wife and I, and still continue to help us today when we do a little refresher course and remind ourselves of the principles we learned in Dr. Gary Chapman's book. So I encourage you, I'm endorsing the 5 love languages by Dr. Gary Chapman. And the concept behind this, just briefly, is that he suggests that everybody shows love, shows their own love, and feels loved differently. And that we're all wired a little bit differently, and that the way that we show our love may not always be the way that our spouse needs to feel loved. And it's really interesting because, after the honeymoon wears off and the physical attraction, well, the physical attraction, you should never, wear off. You should, try to keep eyes for your spouse and your spouse only and so forth. But even the emotional things, just when the honeymoon wears off and you're in life, and it becomes more about laundry and dishes and kids and work and the hustle and the busyness of what life demands from us, and our ability to respond to all that life is demanding from us. Growing up and becoming responsible adults. It can get really overwhelming, and we almost lose sight of each other. The husband's so busy taking care of the tasks that he feels he has to take care of. The wife so busy taking care of the tasks that she needs to take care of. And we may almost miss and start to grow almost apart, which is good. The husband should have his things to do going this way, and the women should have their things to go doing that way. But we almost can sometimes grow so far apart that we forget to keep meeting in the middle and to twine together so that our marriages over the years grow stronger and stronger and stronger. I can't emphasize how important it is as we find our own ways in life as two married couples with unique individual ideas and compassions and missions, that we still keep meeting together, though, in the middle, communicating and joining together, so that our marriage grows strong like a vine, rather than until you hear people say, well, we just grew apart. We don't want to see that happening in our lifelong commitments and covenants to one another. So anyways, back to the Gary Chapman thing. He suggests that we have differing ways that we love each other. And these are them, if you've never seen them before. And they're called receiving gifts. That would be one love language that a person feels loved and shows their love through. Quality time being another. Words of affirmation, acts of service, and physical touch. And just a brief explanation of each one. Receiving gifts would be that there are people who just love to receive and give gifts. From my own life, personal example would be my mother. My mother, if you see, I kind of haven't moved here, but on my bookshelves, and I've got whole boxes of just little knickknacks and things that my mother loves to get people, and she's always giving me things like this. Like this one's interesting. It just says relax, and it's got a picture of me some 18, maybe 17, 18 years ago. And she just buys me these little things, these little knickknacks and stuff all the time, and gives them to me, and that's how she shows love. She also is a woman that loves gifts. My mom loves the acronym for FROG, which is fully rely on God. Her acronym for FROG, fully rely on God. So buying her little stuffed animal frogs or little frog knickknacks and stuff, these are things that make her feel loved, because her gift, one of her love languages, is gift giving. Something to understand here, though, now is that if that's your love language, that will fill your love tank, as Dr. Chapman says, and you'll feel loved by giving. You'll express your love by giving people gifts, and you'll feel loved when people give you gifts. But if your love language wasn't gift giving, it may not. You can give somebody, let's say, whose love language is quality time, as much gifts as you want, but they won't really feel loved if their love language isn't gift giving or receiving gifts. So we move to quality time. Let's say you're an individual. One of my, I would say, love languages, probably primary, first and most love language, is quality time. I love when you get a chance to just set aside an hour and sit down and have coffee and just have one-on-one time to just talk and discuss and vent and think out loud and so forth, and to just spend time together, undistracted time, one to another. If your love language is words of affirmation, you might be a person, maybe you grew up in a home where you didn't have a very nurturing upbringing, or you had a parent or somebody who was verbally not affirming. Maybe they told you were stupid, or told you you'd never amount to nothing, or maybe they said things that stuck in your head for years, like you're pathetic. And what you really need, and something that you really, for healing, is to have somebody tell you that you're awesome, that you're smart, that you look beautiful today, that somebody to tell you that they're proud of you, or they noticed how hard you work. And you would give words of affirmation. Could be a way that you show love to people by encouraging them, or a way that you feel loved when people affirm you. They tell you you're pretty, or they tell you you're handsome. And so words of affirmation would be a way, something that makes you feel very loved and fulfilled inside. Then again, if your love language isn't words of affirmation, there's people who, if you told them, oh, you look very nice today, it might make them feel uncomfortable. It might make them feel awkward, and it might be something that doesn't make them feel loved, but make them feel more like, yeah, back off. It's not my love language. I don't care for that. Compliments. All depending on what your love languages are. Acts of service. Acts of service is my wife 100%. Acts of service would be you doing stuff, serving. It's a servitude, it's a work to help and to show that you care and that you love. Things like doing dishes, doing laundry, folding clothes, cleaning the house, making dinner, doing things to serve one another. Acts of service could be your love language, or it may not be. Physical touch. Physical touch, very popular one with the men. Physical touch would be the actual, holding hands, cuddling on the couch, giving each other hugs, at the sink, in the kitchen. It does entail also intercourse, sexual intimacy between a husband and a spouse, but doesn't always mean just that. Sometimes, us men, we got to understand that women, our wives, just want to be hugged and held sometimes without taking it to the end zone. You know what I mean? And just to have physical affection and cuddling and touching and warmth and so forth. And so these are those things. These are the 5 love languages. And as you look at these, gift giving or receiving gifts, spending quality time together, words of affirmation, acts of service, servitude one unto another, and physical touch. These are all ways that Dr. Gary Chapman suggests are ways that we may show love and feel love. But the thing where we miss it in marriages is if your wife's, for an example, love language is acts of service, and your love language is quality time, and your wife is expecting you to help do dishes or fold laundry or put the kids to bed or do things that are going to help her in her acts of love, and you're wanting to sit down and spend an hour and drink coffee and, read the Bible or talk about a movie that you all just saw or a book you just read, you can see where the wife might think that what you're doing, and you can see that they can conflict with each other. And this could go in any direction in so many different combinations. I don't know where that came from. Combinations, I'm making up words now. This, as they say, the cookie could crumble in so many different ways depending on what your personal love language is. If we're doing some pastoral counseling and you were sitting here in my office with me, we could kind of try to identify those things together. But I don't think it's even necessary. Of course, if you need a mediator, I'm here 100%. I'll make availability. I'll carve something out in the schedule for your marriage. But you don't necessarily need me to just ponder these differing ways of showing love and feeling love to understand that we need these for one another. Now, this is where submitting to one another comes in handy. Please write this down or put it on a post-it or pause this and look at the minutes at where this is, and remember this. Ephesians chapter 5. Ephesians chapter 5, Pauline epistle, the Apostle Paul's letter to the church in Ephesus, starting in verse 22, is a beautiful place, a core place to begin getting a spiritual Christ-given understanding for how husbands we are to love our wives and how wives are to love us husbands. And when we get an understanding of the love and the respect, that's another book we could mention another time. And we get into the loving and serving and submitting onto one another, and we realize that, and these 5 love languages, let me also add, work well with your children as well if you have children. When you realize what's important to your spouse, and your spouse realizes the things that are important to you, and then we humble ourselves, we get over ourselves, and we submit to one another to serve each other in those things that are important, This causes for a much more healthier, less conflicting, peaceful home where things like encouragement, edification, and building each other up can really become the atmosphere, the culture in your house, the air that you breathe, a refuge, a place where you feel lifted and not condemned, a place where you feel edified by one another and not anybody being condescending toward each other. And I'll give you some examples from my wife and I's own marriage. Around that 6-7 year mark, I remember we were going through this thing where my wife, I would do everything that I thought that I could imagine to try to make it easier for my wife, because she is just a acts of service go-getter. I could clean my house from top to bottom, right? And do everything that I could imagine to do. Do the dishes, fold the laundry, take care of dinner, just get everything that I, total like Mr. Mom, just to try to give her a break, to take the pressure off of her, because I see how hard and tirelessly, and this is a praise to my wife, man, you know, I got a good one, of how she would just go. It's that Polish, born and raised on a farm, got to get up early, feed the chickens thing, and milk the cows, you know, sun up to sundown kind of drive that she has from where she was born and the way she was raised and her siblings on a farm in Poland. And I could do everything that I could. And I make the joke that she'd come home, look at everything, notice everything was done, and then want to go grab a ladder out of the garage and start cleaning the gutters. And it's just how she was. And it used to drive me crazy. Me wanting to get everything done so we could spend quality time together. Now her, acts of service woman, and me, quality time guy, wanting to get everything done so we could just sit down and talk and maybe make plans for the future, or talk about, you know, what we're going to do with the kids on their birthdays, or how does Christmas going to look to us this year? What do we want to start planning for and working toward now, you know, so that we have something for the kids on Christmas, you know, things of this nature, wanting to spend quality time together. We were missing each other. And I actually thought that my wife, I got to the place to where my negative thinking, my crank started turning in the wrong direction. I got bad thinking that beget bad emotions. I started to feel all sorry for myself and started to think that she was just staying so busy because she didn't love me and that she didn't want to spend any time with me, right? And I thought, well, she's just avoiding me. There must be, you know, somebody else on her mind. There must be somebody else on her heart. She must not really, you know, like me that much. And I started to get into this stupor, right? And then we came across these Gary Chapman's 5 love languages, got into it deeply, and my gosh, when we realized and we started to learn each other's love languages, our primary and secondary love languages, I was able to then go, oh wow, acts of service is how she shows love. So by me returning that and coming back and trying to help her and serve her, she's going to feel loved. And when she realized in return that, oh wow, my husband's love language is quality time, he's not just being lazy, he actually wants to sit down and spend time and have coffee and have dinner, and he shows love that way, and he also needs that quality time to feel loved. I realized my wife wasn't staying busy to avoid me, and I wasn't one to sit down to be lazy. But no, this was something that we both needed to feel loved and to express our love and to show our love. And then we both realized, wow, these things that we were almost starting to hate about each other, that were driving each other away, when I realized, oh my God, acts of service is actually how she shows love, I had this epiphany of, oh my God, am I loved? Oh my God, are we loved? She's really loving us when she's doing this stuff and staying so busy and serving all the time. And she realized, oh wow, my husband's really wanting to love me when he wants to sit down and spend quality time together and hold my hand and have a cup of coffee and actually take a break, to give her a break. I wanted to see her take a break as well. And this is just some examples of how we realize that we were missing each other, but that we all need to figure it out, how we're showing love, what we need to feel loved. And I'll tell you what happens. As I took on the role of acts of service now, and any day of the week you'll see me unloading the dishwasher or making dinner or doing these things to help her and serve her in the love language and in the way that she feels loved and shows loved. In return, Friday nights we go out for an hour, even if it's just for a Dunkin' Donuts coffee, and we sit down and we spend quality time together. And I got to tell you, the sacrificing in these things, it may not come natural to you to, let's say, tell your wife she's pretty, to give words of affirmation. But if that's her love language, and that's what she needs to feel loved, you got to get over yourself. You got to give up yourself, and you got to learn to love your spouse in the language that they need that love. If you're not a cuddly person, and you're not big on holding hands, but your spouse needs that to feel loved, and does that to show love, you got to get over yourself, and you got to give yourself up and give that spouse and love that spouse in the way that they're going to feel it and need it to feel fulfilled. If your love language isn't gift giving, you're not big on buying little knickknacks and stuff, but you know that your spouse or your mother or your children, that's how they feel loved and appreciated, and it'll bring a warmth and a comfort and a fulfillment to their soul. Go to the thrift store and pick up a little knickknack and get them a gift to let them know that you were just thinking about them. And this is the beauty of the 5 love languages. And as we learn them, the physical touch, the acts of service, the words of affirmation, the quality time, the gift giving, and we realize, oh wow, you might start to learn that you're not that your spouse or your children or your whoever you apply these suggestions to, you can actually learn to love the very things that you were despising them for when you learn their love language. So anyways, that's it. I'm encouraging it. Dr. Gary Chapman, The 5 Love Languages, Amazon it, pick it up, learn it, get the content, and apply it. Apply these principles to your home, to your marriage, to your children, to your interactions with other human beings on this planet, for a more effectual way to learn, love, submit, and just be good to one another. So I'm Scott Boggs of the Potter's Church. You go to thepotterschurch.com to find out more. Please subscribe. We want to build our viewer base here, and we'll see you next week. And I think we're going to stay on this topical teaching for a little while, ministering health, healing, and better ways of communicating in our homes, so our homes could be a place of refuge, sanctuary, and peace. So God love you. I'm Pastor Scott Boggs, and we'll see you next week. Peace.